Welcome to the show. Let's talk to Bonnie Hughes. She's a business development manager at the mining group UK, Royal HaskoningDHV. God, that's a tongue twister for a Monday morning. Morning to you, Bonnie.
Good morning, Nick. Thank you for having me on the show today.
Happy Christmas.
Yes.
Right, let's kick off. You've sent a number of slides. Let's whiz through these. The first one is uranium. The chart looks to me as if it's trying to break up and out.
That's what I think it is too, and we've been waiting for the past few years for uranium. Everybody said it was going to happen this year. Of course it didn't. But what has happened is the largest producer of uranium, which is Kazakhstan, their government-owned, is reducing the amount of production down by 20% over the next 3 years.
Okay.
Because they're responsible for 40% of the world's production, that will account for about an 8% reduction in total production of uranium. And then you have Cameco, which is also reducing their production. And then you have increasing nuclear power stations being built in China and India. So what you will have is supply-demand is now switching on uranium.
Okay, well, let's go to the second slide on this area. Go nuclear. China on the path to challenge US as the home of atomic power. Is that the case?
That is the case because China obviously has had very difficult problems with pollution over the number of years because they had most of their energy is generated from thermal coal. And they are trying to reduce their reliance on thermal coal and increase their nuclear energy power because it's one of the cheapest and also one of the cleanest.
Okay, let's move on to cobalt, the cobalt market from surplus to deficit. What's this telling the market?
Well, I think cobalt, last year lithium, or this year lithium was in vogue. I think cobalt near the end of this year started becoming more and more in vogue as the whole electric vehicle market has come into play, that there's going to be more electric vehicles. Now, I think the electric vehicle market is going to be a little bit longer before it really comes to fruition, probably 2025, because right now it's still a little bit expensive for the average consumer.
Right.
But the cobalt that is required is not as available as there is lithium companies now.
Okay.
And most of it is sourced from the DRC, and there is a lot of unregulated mines there that sometimes use child labor, and a lot of the big companies like Apple, Microsoft have been called out on not sourcing their cobalt from sources that are much more reliable and obey the laws of mining in the world. And also an interesting thing is the biggest end user in China of cobalt has basically did an investment in an Australian company called Nazir Cobalt, and they just put in 10 million Australian dollars into that, and they're not in production yet. So that's kind of a bit unusual. So it seems China, like they have with lithium, is trying to secure their sources of cobalt.
Okay, well, let's take a look at the Cobalt Charts. Again, that feels as if it's trying to break up and out, isn't it?
It does feel like that. So I think that trend line is going to continue into 2018 because, as you know, the trend is your friend.
And don't buck the trend.
Exactly.
Okay, well, let's take a look at coking coal. What's the headlines here?
And so the thing about coking coal is it's used in steel production, and
Right.
as you know, China, US, and everybody is trying to
Clean up their act.
increase their infrastructure as well. So China has had a lot of unregulated coking coal mines that they shut down due to pollution control. So they're trying to clean up their act. And so it looks like the price of coking coal had a very good price rise last year, and I think that price rise will be sustained and will continue. Now, also too, the EU has designated coking coal in 2016 as a critical mineral. And basically in 2016, the EU imported 85% of their coking coal. And coking coal is different than thermal coal because thermal coal is used in power.
Right.
Coking coal is used in the furnaces for steel production.
Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. This is the palladium pushes ahead of platinum. This is a ratio chart. What's the key component here?
So this hasn't happened, as you can see, for 16 years. So the price of platinum has always been higher than palladium.
Right.
And what you have here is palladium has now surpassed the price of platinum. And the reason for that is, platinum, palladium are used as catalysts in auto catalysts. And the price of platinum has gone down because it's usually mostly used in diesel, whereas palladium is used in gasoline cars. And now everyone's moving away from diesel and back into gasoline cars. So there's much more of a demand for palladium, but also there's been a decline in production of palladium and platinum, as you've seen in South Africa with all the disruptions and the prices. Now, what just happened this weekend is Sibian Stillwater, which took over Stillwater out of the U.S., just took over Lonmin. So I think you wouldn't see a big company like that doing all these acquisitions in the space if they didn't foresee that there will be a good long-term price trend on palladium going forward. And so it's an interesting that this occurred this weekend in the market, and they will become a powerhouse of production for platinum and palladium.
Okay, well, let's just wrap up finally with the outright chart. Obviously, one's on the way to the moon and the other one's slipping.
Well, I'm going to make an outrageous statement.
I like those.
Because no one ever remembers anything that you say when it's just, with the norm.
Yeah.
So my outrageous statement is I think that palladium may briefly surpass the price of gold this year.
Right.
Which has never happened,
Okay.
by the way. But when you look at that strength in the chart, well, it almost looks like a Bitcoin, really.
Yeah. An Eiffel Tower chart formation.
Exactly.
But why would it overtake gold? What's the bullet point for that?
Well, I mean, palladium is a supply-demand type of commodity, whereas gold is a perception to commodity. It has nothing to do with supply or demand. Yeah. It is an asset class. And to me, it's much easier to foresee where the price of something that is a supply-demand type of commodity, where it's going, as opposed to trying to guess the perception of, the general world, whether the risk is on, the risk is off, or whether Trump says something that can make the price go up. So there's no sort of fundamental things that you can see in gold as you can with something like palladium, because it's not really used in anything except as a currency.
Right. Bonnie, we've run out of time. Thank you very much indeed.
Wonderful. Thank you.